First and foremost, good morning, and thank you for your time and having us here. On behalf of Americans' Prosperity, I'm grateful for the work that you've accomplished to date, the groundwork you've laid, and the tireless work that you've put in on the behalf of our great state of Texas. As the state director of AFP Texas, I'm humbled to be here as one of you. I've always had the greatest respect for the grassroots, but since taking this position on about 2 months ago from the private sector, that respect has grown to admiration. Admiration because I'd always seen the effects, but I'd never seen the budgets on which you accomplish those. That is, I assumed that there was a budget behind that was similar to a typical political party, and instead, when I walked in, I found volunteers spending their own time putting together budgets basically on shoestring, duct tape, and occasionally a home equity loan. So thank you very much for your work. And in seeing that work, I'm reminded of that passage in Matthew's Gospel that says, those who are faithful in a few things will be given stewardship over many. Folks, that day of expanded stewardship is upon us today. The responsibility of preserving Texas has been given to us and thousands of men and women around this great state who are like-minded. And as Ken likes to say, as Texas goes, so goes the nation. So we must be faithful to our mission. I realize I'm new on this scene, so I wanted to take a moment and introduce myself. I grew up as the oldest son of two conservatives. My dad founded the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, which is currently defending Hobby Lobby in front of the Supreme Court against Obamacare, while my mother sacrificed her own law career to raise 7 kids, and she homeschooled every one of us. A feat not many can endure. And I'll tell you, if you think one lawyer can talk, try having dinner with 2 lawyers, their 7 kids, and all blessed with the Irish gift of gab. But my wife prefers to call that gift a curse, and she's originally from Long Island. Then she worked for the National Rifle Association for a number of years, so you know I didn't marry a shrinking violet. But it took 3 years for her to get a word in edgewise. So, as a product of the Reagan years, growing up in this kind of family among 2 conservatives, I was blessed to grow up in a time of prosperity. But as a result, I didn't know why I was conservative. I didn't know why I believed in the free market. I just knew that I did. I didn't know why I believed in limited government. All I knew is that the worst insult my dad could call somebody was bureaucrat. So it wasn't until college that I first discovered Milton Friedman and Hayek's Road to Serfdom. And those are the intellectuals who explained to me why I was conservative. I was conservative not because I liked old things or just liked to keep things the way they were. Instead, I'm conservative because I know, and you know, that all the good intentions in the world cannot justify a dismal record of results. And we have seen a tragic illustration of that over the last 6 years. Conservatives believe in results. Good intentions are nice, but the real question is what works? What policies are best for lifting people out of poverty, improving their lives on an individual basis? And the answer is the free market, the free enterprise economy. Now, most would take a free enterprise economy and equate that with a pro-business economy. And you see the media doing that every day. And Harry Reid going even further than that when it comes to the Americans for Prosperity. But Milton Friedman disagreed with equating those 2 terms and drew a crucial distinction. Pro-business means free enterprise for existing businesses, but not for those who are trying to start businesses. Pro-free enterprise means you work for everyone on behalf of individual liberty and opportunity. It means you want to lower the barriers for each and every individual to enter the workforce, support their family, pursue their career according to their dreams, merit, and work ethic. That is free enterprise, and that is different from pro-business. We are pro-free enterprise. We are pro-prosperity. Heck, it's even in our name. We support the policies that improve the well-being of every person regardless of their state in life, and those are policies of individual empowerment, family empowerment, not government mandates. You know, liberals in Washington often accuse advocates of economic freedom of driving the economy into a ditch and then casting blame for not getting it out fast enough. You know, in 2010, our president used that analogy 50 times, just in 2010. But the liberals have missed the point. We're not blaming them just for poor driving. We're blaming them for creating the ditch. The left has altered what should be an even economic playing field and turned it into a terrain that's better suited for dirt bikes. They've taken over a market economy that's always been based on opportunity and hard work, and they've transformed it into an inside game. Favored industries, companies, all the while raising red tape barrier on the ordinary men and women who have the desire to create something for themselves. You know, today's Cylindras are just the latest versions of what Jimmy Carter tried in 1979. 1979, President Carter said, we still face, in this quote, we still face the basic reality about America's use of oil. We must use less and we must pay more for what we use. That's why I will fight for a windfall profits tax on the unearned excess profits of the oil companies. And we will develop a better mass transit system. We will finance an all-out effort by American science and technology to meet our long-term needs. End quote. We know how that worked out. But more than 30 years later, we have another president proposing a similar so-called all of the above energy approach at the expense of our proven energy reserves of oil and gas. Again, picking winners and losers. And it's no coincidence that under these administration's policies, the percentage of Americans in the labor force has hovered at the lowest levels since President Carter. The business of picking winners and losers based on the superior conscience of Washington is a proven failure, and it's un-American. And it's un-American because when government gets in bed with big business, our democracy suffers. America suffers. Liberals like to scream about corruption between corporations and government, but they never figure out that they're the ones creating those conditions. Think about it. Every liberal solution is the creation of a new government program which creates another bureaucrat to award no-bid contracts to websites that don't work, and with every new bureaucrat dispersing funds, 10 more lobbyists show up to grease that palm for a select group of favored businesses. Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers that the biggest threat to liberty is the concentration of power. You want to drain the lobbying swamp in Washington? Reduce the government's abilities to hand out special favors. Shrink government. As long as government continues to grow, business will continue to pay for lobbyists, and they will reap the rewards at the expense of the next Steve Jobs or next Sam Walton. And this is the Washington, D.C. that the left has created. You want to get the economy out of a ditch across this country? Then get the economy out of Washington, D.C., because Washington, D.C. is that ditch. Government grows where community falters. And thank God our community here has not faltered. You know, growing up, I always heard my mom quote the proverb, "There but for the grace of God go I." But when it comes to the economy and the state of our country, I have a slightly different take on it. As I look out at the thousands of people struggling to rise above poverty and unemployment in states like California and Illinois, I can only think, there but for Texas go I. We're different here. We haven't lost our spirit of entrepreneurship, nor have we lost our reliance on community institutions. And the proof is in the numbers. You know, 2 months ago, plus or minus, George Strait began his final tour. And over the last couple months, I found myself humming his song, "If It Wasn't for Texas." Because if it wasn't for Texas, not a single new middle-class job would have been created in the country since 2000. That's according to the Dallas Fed and the Census Bureau. Texas is responsible for every single middle-class job created net in the nation since the year 2000. Over that time, it's been more than 800,000 middle-class jobs created in Texas. And without Texas, the nation would have lost 720,000 jobs. If it wasn't for Texas, the number of households earning below the poverty threshold in this country would have grown nearly as much as the number of households earning above the median income in this country since the end of the recession, since 2009. In Texas, however, the number of households earning above the median income since the end of the recession grew 10 times more than the number of households below poverty level. 10 times, whereas if it wasn't for Texas, it would have been dead even across the country. So there are two government models revealing themselves in our country today, but only one works. Texas works. Washington, D.C. does not. Texas works. California doesn't. Texas works. Chicago doesn't. But now, as Ken said, these leftist groups are coming to Texas. They are coming into Texas and arguing our model isn't good enough. That Texas needs to move left to remain sustainable. The model that kept Texas out of the housing bubble isn't good enough, they say. The model that has created every middle-class job in this country since Bill Clinton left office isn't good enough, they say. And I find it ironic that the leaders of these groups, of these leftist groups, are coming from Washington, D.C., California, and Illinois, rather than coming from our great state. As of last month, just to use an example, 1 in 5 staffers for Battleground Texas, that liberal group, 1 in 5 of those staffers were from out of the state. They were not from Texas. The left can't fix the models that are broken in their hometowns, but they want to destroy the model that is working in ours. You know, kind of like those healthcare plans that you liked but couldn't keep, liked or canceled. The Washington bureaucrats decided those healthcare plans weren't good enough, so they canceled them and replaced them with something worse. Don't let them do that here. These folks want to turn Texas model into California model, and they are taking their talking points, though, straight out of Washington, D.C. They want to talk income inequality. But Texans know it's not about inequality, but income growth, a higher standard of living for all, a better quality of life. And you could find examples all across Texas of this to be the case, but I love the example of Ector County. There, it's a population of 130,000 people, more than 53% Hispanic, and less than 15% of the adult population has a college degree or higher. In 3 years, the median income in that county rose by more than $6,000 per household, and they are now above the median income in the state of Texas. And the left will say, that's oil money, though. And I say, that's absolutely right. But it's money that these Texans never would have earned if you had implemented your policies. If Obama and his allies on the left had implemented their energy policies, those people in Ector County would be $6,000 poorer today, if not worse. So I asked the question, who's better off right now, the Texas or the country? Who has created 600,000 more jobs than it had before the recession? Texas. Who is down 600,000 jobs since the pre-recession peak? That's the rest of the United States, overseen by DC liberals. They've had 6 years to try and turn their model around, which is longer than Jimmy Carter has an entire library devoted to. They can point to a roaring stock market and call it a recovery, but the fact remains that more than 600,000 people who had jobs today or before the recession still lack them today, but none of those jobs are here in Texas. None of those missing jobs are in Texas. The left blames unemployment on ATM machines. Again, that's straight from our president. But it might come as news to some of these folks, but down here in Texas, we have ATM machines too. And from the looks of our economy versus the national economy, I think we're using those ATM machines a whole lot more than anywhere else. So let's bring on the debate. I want to close with one final point. And I thank you for your time again. And this picks up where Ken was talking. When it comes to the policies of improving people's lives, we have the advantage of being right. And we have a record to prove it. But being right on the facts only gives us a head start in this race. It doesn't win it. As you all very well know, being right does not equal victory. In spite of all the facts in our favor, we must still work to protect policies that have made Texas via the nation. And it's going to take work. Hitting doors, sharing with our neighbors, and devoting precious weekend hours to our cause. We don't have unions to pay for company time, but we have something the modern left has never encountered. That's our love for Texas and our willingness to do whatever it takes to preserve our liberty. John Steinbeck described it this way. He said, quote, "Texas has a tight cohesiveness, perhaps stronger than any other section of America. Rich, poor, panhandle, Gulf, city, country. Texas is the obsession, the proper study, and the passionate possession of all Texans." Great line. The late, great country singer George Jones, who passed away a year ago, had a saltier take. He said, "Why in Texas we raise hell? Just like you raise a crop, it started with the Alamo, and it ain't never going to stop. It is the hell-raising center of the earth." John and George were right. We love Texas, and we will fiercely defend her from those who want to force harmful change. But we don't need to get defensive. Does that work? As I was saying, we don't want to get defensive, and we want to leave the bitterness for those who are down in the ball game, because we're winning. Together, we're going to continue winning. This is not a temporary battle for AFP. Americans for Prosperity is here to stay. We're here to stay because we believe in the Texas model. You have my word that neither the size of my staff nor the scope of our efforts will change between now and at the end of the election. It'll stay the same into 2015. It might grow in 2016. But we're burning our boats because we believe in the Texas model. Further, you have my word that if you have the time and the desire to work as a volunteer, then I have a tablet and a phone to maximize that time no matter where you are. We need your time, we need your network, but we don't need the credit. This is a team game. We're all in the same, and we're all working towards a single goal. That's protecting the state against policies that we've seen do not work anywhere else. Richard Fisher of the Dallas Fed recently said in a speech that Texas is a state of mind where people are ready to work, get things done for the betterment of their families and communities in the cities and beyond. We should be proud indeed to call the Lone Star State our home, end quote. I agree. So let's get to work. Thank you all, and God bless.